Okay, I'm unmuted now. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. So it means a lot to me for you to be here, because it means a lot to me to be able to look after staff, support staff in ways that I think they're quite under-supported at the moment. Before we start, and before I start rambling on and talking too much, I'd like to do a very short practice to connect us and gather us together, so you don't need to move. I'm going to move just slightly, because ideally you could get your arms out wide to the side of you. If you can't stretch out like that, you can always, when we bring our arms up, sort of have them like this. So you can rest your arms down by your side or rest them in your lap to begin with. And if you're sitting down, which I think all of you are, just make sure that you can be grounded and comfortable. If you're on a chair, perhaps just edge towards the front of the seat. And then just, if you're sitting on a chair, just have a little look down at your feet and just maybe press gently into the feet and see if the weight can be even. And notice just the connection between the feet, the base of the feet, and the earth and the floor. And notice the connection of the sitting bones as you rest into the floor and the earth and the support of the body. And then if you feel comfortable to close the eyes, you can close the eyes, or if you'd rather just take the gaze down towards the floor, you can do that. Just take a few moments here on this rather chilly Sunday afternoon just to connect. Connect to yourself, connect to each other, as we're here to learn and share together as a community. I'm just going to invite you, if you feel comfortable, to take the left hand over the chest, over the heart space, and then rest the right hand on top of that. And perhaps just notice the movement of the body, perhaps the movement of the chest as you breathe, the movement of the belly as the breath flows through. Connecting to this heart space and connecting to each other, even though we're in this virtual space, to get a sense that we're here together. I'm going to invite you to take the arms wide out to the side of the body, and at this point you can open the eyes if you feel happy to open the eyes. As you breathe in, just gently draw the shoulder blades together, and you can widen the collarbones and just gently look up to the sky if that feels okay. And as you exhale, we're going to give ourselves a hug, one arm on top of the other, and then we're going to pause here for a few breaths. So as you inhale, each time you inhale, you may feel the back of the body expanding. And as you exhale, you can release chin to chest. And just a couple more breaths here, pausing like this, feeling the breath perhaps move through the back of the body on the inhalation and the exhalation. And then on your next inhale, just open the arms wide again, open through the chest. And as you exhale, take the opposite hand on top this time as you give yourself a hug in the other direction. And we're going to pause here again for a couple of breaths. Inhale, expanding through the back of the body. And then exhale, settling through the sitting bones, the feet, chin to chest. And then on your next inhalation, we're going to do the same thing and just open the arms nice and wide. And as you exhale, giving yourself a hug again, and this time just imagining that you're giving someone a hug that perhaps you haven't managed to give a hug for a while, if that feels okay for you right now. Taking a few breaths here to give this person that perhaps you haven't been with for a while a nice big hug, and if it's easier just for it to be a hug for you, then it can be for you. And then listening to the breath, inhaling, opening the arms wide again one last time. And as you exhale, hugging other arm on top. And this time, a person you haven't seen in a while, perhaps the same one or a different one, giving you a nice big hug.
being hugged rather than being the hugger. And settling into that sense of support if that feels okay for you right now. On your next inhalation, just open the arms wide. And as you exhale, rest the arms down by the side of the body. You can close the eyes and just pause for a moment. And just allowing yourself to experience anything that came up during the practice. And then when you're ready, just gently opening the eyes. Okay, so thank you for joining me in that. I wanted to do that practice with you because it's something I do quite often with staff. It's something that can be done online, it's something that can be done in real life. As me and Nikki were just saying, it either seems to be one or the other at the moment. It's also something that can be done seated and lying down. And of course you can do it with anyone, you can do it with the teens as well. I'll talk more about perhaps the way in which teachers feel isolated in a bit and how that can be helpful. You know, it's a simple act, but it's a real act of compassion and connection. And it connects movement and breath and mind. So for me, it's this whole package of care, an offering of support for ourselves, and also an offering of support for others, the imagining of the other people that we may be hugging. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I wanted to try and avoid putting a presentation up, but there was no way around it really. So I'm going to share my screen with you and put up a presentation. And I hope that you will still be able to see me. So let me share my screen. Double click. Oh, you're still at the side of my screen. That's great. I can still see most of you. So there's a nice number of us. So if there are any questions that arise during this, you can type them and maybe I'll have time to address them there and then, or perhaps I'll wait till the end. I'm aware of timing. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the time. Yeah, okay. We should be okay. So, oh, that was meant to be at the end. I hope you didn't read it already. Okay, here we are at the beginning of the presentation. I'll read the quote to you as well. It says, "Teachers matter. They matter to the education and achievement of their students and more to their personal and social well-being. No educational reform has achieved success without teachers committing themselves to it. No school has improved without the commitment of teachers. And although some students learn despite their teachers, most learn because of them, not just because of what and how they teach, but because of who they are as people." So it's really that last line that sticks out to me. And if who they are as people is exhausted and experiencing quite high levels of stress and a number of other things, then you have these individuals standing up at the front of classrooms, and effectiveness of teaching is challenged. So I just wanted to share that with you before moving on and just speaking about what the main issues are, what the main stresses are that education professionals are experiencing. So that quote had the word teachers in, but I'm really talking about all adults that are working within education. Teachers, teaching assistants, learning support, administration, everyone. So number one issue is workload. And this is cited more and more and increasingly as just such a big challenge for everyone that's working in the school environment. The Teacher Wellbeing Index that came out last month actually found that 52% of everyone that took part in the survey, which was 3,000 individuals over the UK, they cited workload as the main reason for thinking about leaving. So it's cause for concern because, you know, this would be an extreme, but if those people decided to up and leave, you've suddenly got half of the workforce out. A lack of autonomy is a big issue being a teacher working within a school in terms of policy that they have no control over. Very, very quick change of policy at the moment as well. a lack of autonomy over how to teach and what to teach and when to teach. And that's really disempowering and can cause quite high levels of stress. Isolation's a big one. Isolation's an even bigger one now. Staff can often go a whole day without really having much connection, much communication with colleagues. Obviously there can be quite a lot of connection and communication with students, but that can also be quite challenging. Poor pay and salary is often cited as one of the main sort of issues in terms of well-being and a threat to well-being. In terms of the work hours and the intensity of the work comparatively to other professions that are similar to that, the salary is very low. And I'm talking about the UK here, but this does go into other countries as well. And then that kind of ties into this not being valued, recognised or acknowledged. I think, you know, salaries involved in that, but also just a sense of how to say thank you to colleagues, how to create a sense that people are really appreciated for all the hard work that's going on. So that's an issue. And this can result in all of these things below. So ineffective teaching and learning obviously impacts the students in a big way. Emotional labour is something that's come up a lot in the research I've done as something that's really become unmanageable and really increased within the teaching as an occupation. So I don't know if you know what emotional labour is, but I've got just the definition here, which is the process by which workers are expected to manage their feelings in accordance with organisationally defined rules, guidelines, and involves efforts to change the degree or quality of emotions or feelings. So if you think about going into a school and from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave, needing to deal with a lot, you know, often a large number of students that have their own complex needs, they're emotional human beings, and the adults as individuals are needing to manage that all the time and manage their own reactions and actions towards that. So that kind of leads into this feeling of being exhausted and burning out. Mental health issues in the education profession have increased quite steeply during COVID, but were already quite higher than the rest of occupations within the UK. It's another thing that can contribute to poor relationships. And a work-life balance that's always been quite challenging, especially in terms of having to take things home and then not having time to see friends and family. There's a lot of administration and homework that needs to be done at home or planning. And then at the bottom of the list, but by no means the least important, is disturbed sleep. A number of teachers that I work with, a number of staff that I work with suffer from poor sleep and report that they either find it difficult getting to sleep and or wake up during the night because they're worried about the work they have to do. So as a yoga therapist, this is one of the things that we ask about first and we inquire about if it's an issue, is sleep. And it's so fundamental for being healthy and being able to function in a way that is supportive. So yeah, there's a lot more that can go on these lists, but I've just kind of picked a few bits. And I move on now to so why yoga? You all kind of know because of your backgrounds, and it's really nice to hear that you've all maybe done the teen yoga course or you're involved with yoga in some way. But well-being is really complex. It's different for everybody. It means a different thing to everyone, and different things make different people feel better. So it's a challenging thing to just say, oh, well, we'll do this to make your well-being better, or to make everyone's well-being better. It's quite of a challenge. And of course, as you know, yoga offers this holistic approach. It offers an approach that's multidimensional, you know, so you can really look at all the different levels of being within individuals, but also within institutions and within collectives, and use yoga in all these different ways to support people. There's a load of research now. There's a lot of research that uses yoga to alleviate suffering that individuals are experiencing. And you know, a lot of that's online, but if you want more about anything specific, I might be able to point you in the right direction if you want to ask me kind of later on. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about working with staff and really what they've experienced. What I've experienced, but what they've experienced. And I've just pulled a few bits out that I think really hit me as being important, because it's what the yoga offered for them. And of course, yoga can offer so much, but these are the things that kind of stuck out. And the other reason, which I haven't written on here, but why yoga is so good, is because we're working with this really rich practice that can offer so much. Even in a group setting, it can be individualized. You know, it's really great in this environment to just be able to be adaptable to each individual, even in a relatively large group. And that's actually something that came back in the feedback from some of the teachers I worked with. So Kate, I've changed all their names obviously. Kate said here, if I didn't feel particularly well, I became comfortable with coming along and doing as much as I felt able to do. All the yoga moves were easily modified if we had any personal needs. And then I enjoyed the fact that you stressed that the class was very much for each individual and what they wanted to get out of the class. So that's good, but it comes from, I think, building a good rapport with staff, and also just building a sense of trust so that they can come and do however much they want, however much they feel like that day. Okay, relaxation and workload. I cannot, and I don't know about you, but I'm imagining you probably can't take work away from them. It's probably going to be quite difficult to give them less homework to mark or less planning to do. But what we can offer within the school environment is a space where staff can come to rest. And it's through the experience of feeling fully rested, having experienced effective rest and relaxation, that there's the opportunity for staff's energy levels to be balanced and managed so that they can potentially move into the rest of their day from a slightly different place, from a place of perhaps feeling like it's under control, rather than moving through the day in a way that feels perhaps frantic. You know, the environment can be very relentless, with very little time to sort of stop and pause. So I prioritise rest and relaxation in all the sessions that I run. It's totally dependent on how much time you might have if you're looking to set up sessions with teachers. I normally do 45 minutes in the afternoon or 75 minutes in the evening. The 45 session, at least 25 minutes of that is rest and relaxation, and really the build up to that is just preparation. So you know, it's always good to have a bit of movement and some breathing practices. Nice simple breathing practices I find often work quite well, rather than pranayama, to relax staff and then guide them into relaxation. So this is by far their favourite bit, and I think I've already mentioned this to Lisa, but some of the staff I work with have nicknamed our session 40 Winks Yoga. And you know, a lot of them just drop off and they have a little afternoon nap or they have an evening nap, and you know, if that's what they need, that is just great. It's a sign of exhaustion, it's a sign that they are really tired, and that they really need a bit more rest. So I'm just going to share a couple of quotes with you. So Petra here says, the sessions create an oasis of calm which provided a wonderful contrast to the manic nature of a busy day in school, where bells are constantly ringing so the pace feels like a constant rush. The sessions made me feel calm, they dusted off the vigour, pace, intensity of the day. The relaxation element is wonderful, I generally nod off. A real treat to have a quick nap at the end of the day, very grounding. And then Talisa said, I love the relaxation aspect of the session and the mindfulness, absolute relaxation, having time for me, taking time out of the busyness and stresses of everyday life. I enjoyed all the session, but for me, the time for quiet and self-reflection was so important. And Scarlett says, I've realised how important it is to have quality, quiet, reflective times during a busy week. So I just pause there because I don't have time to speak about this at depth now, but obviously the self-reflective process of yoga that it invites, it did come up a lot in my research, and a lot of teachers said, you know what, I just hadn't stopped to realise how stressed I was. I just hadn't stopped to realise how I was feeling. I just didn't even realise I felt like that. And, you know, I realise it's a good idea to take a bit more care. I realise it's a good idea to do these things. So to be able to have that impact, I think can be quite powerful and really ripple out into the rest of the school community. And then Jane at the end here says, I love the last 15-20 minutes. It's absolutely divine because I don't rest my mind enough of the day. All the time I'm doing something, it's busy, you've got your mindfulness app, and I'd never sit there and just breathe or close my eyes. So that's lovely. I make time every week to do that and then float out of here and go to my lesson, and I'm like, oh, whatever, really. Now, I don't think she means, oh, whatever, like, oh, you know, I don't care about the lesson anymore. I think she means, I'm interpreting this for her. But I get a sense that it's a feeling of, you know, I can float into the lesson. Perhaps she can float in there with a little bit more openness and willingness to see what comes up in her class, to see what comes up with her students, rather than moving into the space in a sort of frantic or fraught or exhausted way. So that leads us on to isolation being alleviated and or sort of supported through connection. So this is one of the real, I think for me, what came out of this and what felt really good about doing this and still doing this is a sense of community that is formed through bringing these members of staff together through yoga. A lot of the staff didn't know each other before they came, you know, big schools, and often not the chance to sit down and say hi or meet new people. And, you know, the sessions were started years ago, so they've had an opportunity to build the community, and they've supported each other through lockdown, you know, through informal conversations I've had with them. They've said, you know, it's really great because I now know another 20 members of staff randomly around the school, and we can bump into each other, and we've got that, oh, you know, how are you doing? Just a little bit more of a checking in, because they realise how important it is. So that community can obviously still be facilitated online. I've seen them online a couple of times, and we've carried on in real life as much as we can, because most of the time, apart from obviously during the first lockdown, they've been at school. And then there's a sense that when everyone enters the room, there's a sense of relief, I think, for a lot of the teachers. Oh, I'm here, I've got my 45 minutes, and they all have a giggle at the beginning. They all, you know, moan about A, B, C or D, and they all, this is again me interpreting what I'm hearing and seeing, but the sense of connection that comes through the fact that they understand there's a mutual respect, a mutual understanding for each other. They're in the same environment, and they're dealing with their own individual needs, but also needs that are collective within that community. Difficult parents, difficult students, difficult senior leadership, whatever it is. And so, yeah, there's a real sense that people were getting together. And it's a real leveler, you know, all of the hierarchy of role within a school is totally leveled out and taken away within that room. You know, there's everyone from within the school, administration staff, catering staff, you know, teachers, teaching assistants. And so everyone's in the same space, sharing the practice and sharing that experience. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has come out of the sessions that I've been doing. And there's a couple of quotes here. So Scarlett says, I think it's important to stretch and relax the body and mind. It's also enjoyable to carry out an activity outside of work with colleagues. Now, what's interesting about this is it wasn't outside of work, but it was for her. Like in her head, clearly it was, which I find quite nice, because it was definitely in school, in a school building, in the school day. So the fact that she sees that as an outside of work thing, I think is quite nice. And then Kate says here, spending time with a regular set of friends doing the class was also very good for my well-being. We became closer inside and outside the class and were there for each other around school. So Kate didn't know half of the people at the beginning of this, so to call them all friends now, I think that's a real sense of connection there. Just going to keep an eye on the time. Okay, great. And sort of that leads me on to sort of last main topic I want to talk about, which is sleep. Sleep, being able to, effective sleep, providing time and space to heal. So the thing about yoga, which you all will know, is that as teachers, we share these practices that can be adopted and adapted by individuals for them in their own space when they're needed and when they're appropriate. And at the end of the day, I feel like that's one of the reasons why I'm here, to share these practices and go on, take it and do it, use it and utilize it. So I'll share with you a couple of quotes, but there was a lot of feedback in terms of, I did that, I tried that practice out when I was feeling a little bit stressed, and quite a few of the teachers used the practices in bed. I don't want you to give you the impression that everyone was going home and practicing loads of yoga all the time, because that wasn't happening by any means. But a few minutes here and there can make, as you will know, quite a big difference sometimes. And, the benefits can ripple out into professional lives, but also into personal lives. Relationships at home and relationships at school. So because insomnia and difficulty sleeping is cited as a big issue within education professionals, for education professionals, prioritizing rest if you're going to run yoga sessions with them, whether that's yoga nidra if you're trained to do that, or whether it's a simple guided relaxation, whatever works for you, by prioritizing that, what you're also offering is a practice that can be utilized very easily around bedtime, pre-bed, in bed, maybe once they're woken up if they're still feeling a bit tired or need some energy. So it's kind of a win-win situation, I think, doing that. And before I share the quotes with you, I just wanted to touch on this point about switching off, which ties into sleep. I was lucky enough to be taught on my yoga therapy training by Lisa Sanfilippo, who's written a book. I can send it to you, Yoga Therapy for Insomnia and Sleep Recovery. And when she was teaching us, she spoke about how people use this term switching off. There you go, Nikki's got a copy too. She said, we're not machines. We can't switch on and off. That's not what that's not what we do. And it always stuck with me. I thought, that's so true. And in my research, I got a lot of transcribing all the interviews. A lot of the teachers said, I find it really difficult to switch off. I find it really hard to switch off. And then during the yoga sessions and afterwards, and I interviewed them afterwards, they were sort of saying, I found it really easy to switch off in the yoga sessions. So I wanted to share it with you because it's good to talk to people and ask about these things, because then there's the opportunity to say, this type of language that we use sometimes isn't useful, and we're not machines, and you're not switched off. You're actually doing lots of wonderfully amazing things that your body needs to do to be healthy and rejuvenate and digest and assimilate. You're doing all of that when you're resting, when you're sleeping, when you're not doing anything. Yeah, people think I'm not doing anything. But of course, your body's doing lots of wonderful things. So I kind of wanted to tie that in so that people can get it out of their heads a bit, that it's not that they're not doing anything. Rosemary said here, this has been particularly useful in the middle of the night when I used to wake up and start thinking about all the jobs I still had outstanding at work. It has helped me become a bit more disciplined in trying to relax and not dwell on thoughts. And then to Lisa here, I definitely felt more relaxed during and after the yoga sessions. I found I slept better that evening, and I went home and ate a healthy supper too. So this is a really small group of people that I worked with for my research, but the findings are really encouraging, and even just that, a healthier habit that comes as a result from the yoga session, going home and eating a good meal,
that ripple effect that I mentioned before is always a good thing. Oh yeah, practicalities. Let me just check what time is. Okay, I'll just quickly go through practicalities, and then if you want to know anything more, you can just email me. It's all the sort of obvious things. Timing within a school is always quite challenging. Timetabling is just, you know, I think probably the most stressed person must be the timetabler in every school. So get as much information as you can by sending out mass emails via a deputy head if you can, or someone else, to find out when works for staff. You are not going to be able to cater for everyone. That's one of the tricky things that I've discovered. Even putting 2 sessions on a week, there are still individuals that want to come and can't come. There's no real way around that. You just maybe can shift every term the time, maybe every year. It's just something to work with. I do try to offer workshops every half term or every term, so that those, you know, a longer workshop, so that those that may have missed the regular sessions can join in. It's just one of those things you have to work around. Funding. I get paid hourly by the school because I'm also employed by the PE department. For the staff, they donate £1 or £2 each per session that goes into a pot for staff wellbeing. And sometimes that goes to a charity. I know that Steve Parry, the head of yoga at Berkhamsted School, approached the Parents Association for funding, and they sort of provided money for equipment. That would have been for students, but you know, we can put a really good case together that the well-being of staff really impacts the well-being of students, and so it's in the parents' interest to look after the teachers. Equipment now is tricky with COVID. If teachers have their own mats, great. If members of staff have their own mat, that's good. If they don't, mats can be quite cheap now, and you can get them, and just, you know, they need to be disinfected, and if it's only a weekly class, they go into quarantine anyway in between those sessions. Space goes with timetabling. It can be tricky, but it doesn't need to be an empty space, and you don't need to have mats. You can just do it on a chair. You can do 20 minutes, 40 minutes sitting down, standing up round a desk. So that and clothing, I never want to sort of inhibit the sessions happening. People turn up in their suits, in their skirts and tights, and just have to be prepared to be really accommodating for that, because that happens. And if someone decides last minute that they want to come along and they don't have their fitness gear or whatever it is, then, you know, it's really great to be able to still have them in the session. So you just need to be prepared for stuff like that, because they're always running around. And then finally, you might just want to jot their names down. Education Support. They're the only UK charity that look after the health and well-being of teachers, of all the education workforce. They're an amazing charity. Hardly anyone knows about them. No one that I've really come into contact knows about them. They have a 24/7 hotline. They provide mental health support and financial support for teachers that are struggling. They're really good. They produce the Teacher Wellbeing Index every year. It's been going since 2017, and it's definitely worth a look if this is sort of what you're interested in, or you want to put a case together for providing yoga for staff. You know, just get a few of their statistics, and you can say, look, you know, this is really needed right now. And then I'll just finish with this quote that actually popped up at the beginning, but it's here now. So it says here, a moment's thought will make it obvious that the emotional health of one half of a community will be influenced by the emotional health of the other half. If any government was serious about enhancing well-being in a school setting, it might even be argued that the quickest way to promote pupil well-being in schools would be to promote high staff morale, enhance staff awareness of emotions, and provide high-quality training and support for all the adults working in the school. So I didn't mention training, but training's a big one. The lack of adequate training in terms of mental health support and issues, for staff to be able to recognise it in themselves, in colleagues and in their students. There's a big lack of that. So yeah, we could definitely do with more training there. There's always more to say, but I'm going to try and stop talking so much now, and I'm going to check the clock. Okay, so
I don't want to keep any of you past the hour. I want to be able to, oh, there you go. Don't need to see my presentation anymore and I can see you. Great. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I'd normally always want to guide you to relax for about 15 minutes. That won't leave much time for questions at the end, but perhaps we can do about a 10-minute relaxation and have a few minutes at the end to ask any questions if any of you have any, and if not. Hi, Nikki. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, longer asana practice. Actually start with maybe 5 or 10 minutes of breathing practice, perhaps 3-part breath, alternate nostril breathing at the beginning. I like to be able to start with them all reclined. If at the end of the day, normally they just come in and lie down anyway, so just work with what they're already doing. And yeah, a longer asana practice. I'll always check in with all of them, see what's going on, you know, like you would normally do in a class, and just gauge energy levels. Sometimes they have a bit more energy than other times. And yeah, just more of all the other great stuff that you can do. I don't know if that was helpful. I hope that's helpful. Just more practice. Yeah. So if you want to have a short guided relaxation now, then I invite you to get nice and comfortable. As comfortable as possible in the situation that you're currently in. Warm, comfortable and supported. And so once you're lying down and settled, take a few more moments to get more settled. So any little movements that you may want to make with the body, any adjustments, so that you can be as comfortable as possible in this space. And then I'm just going to invite you to rest your awareness over one part of the body that feels particularly comfortable at the moment. So just noticing where feels really comfortable and just resting all your awareness in and around that space. And then just noticing if there's another part of the body, a second part of the body that also feels nice and comfy. And inviting your awareness to rest in and around this second comfortable space. And then perhaps there may be a third area within the body that feels comfortable, really comfortable.
Just invite your awareness to rest in and around this third comfortable space within the body. And if it feels okay, you can just be aware now of those 3 spaces within the body that feel nice and comfortable, settled. Then I invite you just to notice the feeling of the back of the head on the pillow or the mat or the support, whatever's supporting your head. Notice the sensation of the back of the head as it rests into the support, and perhaps with the next few exhalations you can invite the head to feel a little bit heavier. Perhaps a softening through the eyes, the mouth, the jaw. Just allowing the weight of the head to rest into the support of the earth. And then noticing the line of the body from the back of the head all the way down to the feet, the back line of the body that connects the body to the earth. Notice what the surfaces feel like on the back of the arms, back, all the way down the body. And then you can just begin to notice the sensation of the breath as it moves through the body, in and out through the nose. Just invite the mind to move with the breath. Mind moving with breath, breath flowing freely through the body, in and out through the nose. And as you invite the body to rest here, knowing that there's nothing for you to do at the moment, nowhere else to be, knowing that the body is fully supported by the supports underneath you, by the floor and by the earth. You may, if it feels comfortable, begin to use the exhalation as an invitation for the weight of the body to rest down into the earth. Each exhalation providing an opportunity for the body perhaps to soften and release a little bit more into the fully supported earth. Taking an opportunity perhaps to notice any areas within the body that are perhaps holding on to any excess tension. Using the exhalation to release that tension down into the support of the earth. Paying particular attention maybe to spaces around them, jaw, neck, shoulders, around the hips, pelvis. Noticing again the gentle flow of breath as it moves through the body. And perhaps now, as we think about beginning to move again, we can begin to move a little bit more just by bringing a little bit more breath into the body on the inhalation. And just resting, releasing, letting go again on the exhalation. So that you can perhaps begin to experience the inhalation as nourishing and vitalizing, and the exhalation as an opportunity to release and let go. I'm going to invite you just to begin to bring some gentle movement into the body. You could just begin by wiggling the fingers and toes. You could point and flex the feet if you think that'll feel nice. You could scrunch up the hands into fists and then release the fingers wide. You could take the arms over the head if you think that will feel nice, and do a big reach and stretch. Maybe there's a yawn. And then you can take the arms back down by the side of the body. Just gently walk the feet towards you. Bring the knees up. Take the time. If it'll feel okay, you can bring the knees into the chest and just give them a bit of a hug in. And then just rolling over onto one side, whichever side feels more comfortable, and just taking a moment to rest on your side. Taking a moment here to pause again, to notice the flow of the breath, and to know that this place is here for you whenever you need. This place of support. And using your hands and gently just pushing yourself back up into a seated position. Taking your time just to come back up to seated, and perhaps just resting your hands somewhere comfortable on the body, in your lap or on your legs. And then just closing the eyes if you feel comfortable to close the eyes. Chin parallel to the floor, or perhaps slightly tucked towards the chest, so the back of the neck can be long. And just bringing the hands to the heart center if that feels okay for you to do. And taking a moment to acknowledge the teachers in your life, in whatever form they may have come to you. And taking a moment to acknowledge and express gratitude towards the practice and towards yourself for practicing. And you can just gently drop the chin towards the chest, blink the eyes open, and just lift the gaze when you're ready. Thank you. So if there are any questions, you can ask away. I'm here if something comes up later in the evening or later in the week. My email address was all over that presentation, so you can just email me. Or you can get in touch with Nikki and she can give my details out. That's absolutely fine. Oh, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, that's so good to hear. And if you need any more sort of like help, or you want any other resources that I've kind of been using, then just ask away, because it can be so, I think it's just so supportive for them, but also for the students. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Well, my literature review didn't really cover professional relationships being really important to staff. It talked a lot about the importance of the teacher-student relationship, but actually what came out of my research was just how important the connection between colleagues was. You know, a lot of the staff that I work with have been there for a long time, you know, over 20 years. So it's very different if you're talking about NQTs. I think that kind of makes a big difference. But yeah, that was, I mean, not surprising now. It makes a lot of sense, but it was something that I wasn't necessarily expecting to come out of it. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for asking. Anyone else? No. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here and listening and practicing together. And yeah, just let me know if you need anything else. It's been a real joy to be here and to be able to share everything. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Nikki, for facilitating. That's just, you know, I wouldn't be able to do it without. Yeah, so thank you. And I hope you all have lovely Sunday evenings. Yeah, yeah. All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.